Imagine two people starting with the same amount of money, the same opportunities, the same intelligence. 10 years later, one is still waiting for the right time. The other owns businesses, has money invested, and seems to have completely escaped the financial struggle everyone else is stuck in. What happened? Was the successful person smarter? Maybe. Was it luck? Sometimes. But there is another possibility. Their psychology was completely different. Because becoming wealthy isn't only about knowing how to make money. It's about being able to think differently when everyone around you is thinking the same way. And some of the psychological traits that help people become extremely successful can look downright ruthless from the outside. They don't always make the nicest decisions. They don't always seek approval, and they don't always play the same game as everyone else. Today, we are breaking down the darkest psychological traits that often separate people who build wealth from people who spend their entire lives chasing it. Most people are terrified of being disliked. They want approval from their friends, their family, their co-workers, even strangers. But building something extraordinary often requires doing things other people don't understand. You might have to say no, work when everyone else is relaxing, leave a comfortable job, reject advice, take an unpopular position, and sometimes people will think you are crazy. The person obsessed with approval eventually starts making decisions for other people's comfort. The person focused on their own goals makes decisions based on their own priorities, and that difference compounds over time. Most people want the reward now. New phone, new car, expensive clothes, restaurants, vacations. There is nothing inherently wrong with enjoying money. But wealthy people often understand something most people ignore. Money can either be consumed or multiplied. $1,000 spent disappears. $1,000 invested has the potential to become much more. This requires delayed gratification, choosing what you want later over what feels good now. And the dark report, you may have to watch other people enjoy things you can't afford yet. You have to tolerate feeling behind. While everyone else is showing off their lifestyle, you're quietly building yours. Poor decisions often require your time. Wealthy decisions try to multiply your time. Instead of asking, how much can I earn per hour? They ask, how can 1 hour of work produce results thousands of times? Businesses, technology, investments, content, employees, distribution. These are forms of leverage. The goal isn't to work harder forever. It's to build something that continues producing value after your time has been spent. That's one of the biggest psychological shifts between trading time for money and building wealth. Some people are addicted to productivity. They are consistently working, consistently answering messages, consistently doing something. But being busy isn't the same as moving forward. Successful people often become obsessed with identifying the few actions that actually matter. Because if you spend your entire day doing low-value tasks, you can feel productive while going nowhere. Sometimes, the smartest decision isn't working harder. It's eliminating the work that doesn't matter. Most people think wealthy people take huge risks. But often, the opposite is true. They become better at understanding risk. They ask, what's the downside? What's the potential upside? Can I survive if this fails? And then they make the decision. The difference isn't necessarily courage. It's calculated exposure. They understand that avoiding every risk has a cost too, because staying exactly where you are is also a decision. This is one of the most underrated psychological traits, knowing when to quit. A bad business, a toxic partnership, a failing investment, a relationship that consistently drains you, a career with no future. Most people continue because they have already invested so much. I have spent 5 years on this. I already put 20,000 into it. I can't just walk away. But successful people learn to recognize sunk costs. Money already spent is gone. Time already used is gone. The question isn't, how much have I invested? But it's, if I had nothing invested today, will I choose this again? If the answer is no, walking away may be the smartest financial decision you can make. Two people can look at the same situation and see completely different things. One sees a problem, the other sees a business. One sees a crowded market, the other sees demand. One sees rejection, the other sees information. Wealthy people aren't necessarily living in a world with more opportunities. They may simply be trained to notice opportunities other people ignore. Their attention becomes an asset, and wherever attention goes, opportunities start appearing. Someone says no. Most people hear, "I'm not good enough." Successful people often hear, "That approach didn't work." That's a huge psychological difference. One rejection becomes information, another becomes an identity crisis. If you can separate your ego from the outcome, you can keep trying long after other people quit, and eventually, persistence starts looking like a talent. This might be the darkest advantage of all time. Most people think about this month. Successful people often think about the next 5 or 10 years. They make decisions today that won't pay off immediately. They build businesses, they develop skills, they invest, they create networks, they build audiences, and for years, the results might look insignificant. Then suddenly, everything compounds. The person who looked like they were doing nothing suddenly has something valuable. That's the power of compounding. Small advantages repeated for years can become enormous. This is where the psychology gets interesting. There is a massive difference between looking wealthy and being wealthy. A person can have an expensive car, designer clothes, luxury vacations, and a huge monthly payment. A person can drive an ordinary car while quietly owning millions in assets. One is buying the appearance of wealth, the other is buying freedom. And the desire to look successful can become one of the biggest obstacles to actually becoming successful. Here's what nobody likes to admit. Becoming successful can require you to become extremely selfish with your time. You may have to say no more often. You may have to disappoint people. You may have to sacrifice comfort. You may have to ignore opinions. You may have to spend years working on something that nobody else understands. And sometimes, people will accuse you of changing. They might be right, because achieving an extraordinary outcome usually requires changing the person who produced your ordinary one. But there is an important distinction. You don't need to become cold. You don't need to manipulate people. You don't need to step on everyone beneath you. And you definitely don't need to sacrifice your values to make money. The real psychological advantage is simpler. Control your emotions, control your attention, control your spending, control your time. And most importantly, stop letting other people's opinions determine your decisions. Because the people who build wealth aren't always the smartest people in the room. They are often the ones willing to think long term, tolerate discomfort, take calculated risks, and keep going when there is no immediate reward. And that's the part nobody sees. Before the money, there was a psychology. Before the lifestyle, they were years of decisions nobody applauded. And before the success became visible, there was a person willing to keep working when nobody believed in them. So the real question isn't, how do I become rich? Maybe it's, what kind of person would I have to become to build something that lasts?